the My Law in Spain Zoom seminar. Today we're joined by experts from Currencies Direct and Mortgage Matters in Spain. They're going to give us a little bit of an introduction about themselves and their companies shortly. I just wanted to give you an update on the MLS team. So on the call today, we've got Rosario. There's Rosario.
Yes.
We've got Patricia.
Hello.
We've got Patricia, and then we've got Isabel somewhere. Isabel. Okay. So for the MLS team, it's business as unusual. We are all working from home at the moment. The office is closed, but we've got our offices. We're all well connected to our cloud, and all the telephone calls come in to each other. So it is business as unusual, and like all of you, we are looking forward to getting back to work and seeing each other in the office. Next week, we'll be joined by estate agents at the same time, the 24th of April, 3 o'clock. More information about that seminar on our Facebook page. And then what we'll do is we'll start with the introduction now with Alison. Ladies first, gentlemen. So Alison, can you tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, where you live, and how lockdown is treating you?
Yes, for sure. I've been in Spain. I'm Scottish. Been in Spain for over 20 years now. Always in the finance area. So I work for various banks: Credit Suisse, Société Générale, Banco Santander, or Bank of Scotland. And then 5 years ago, I started to specialize in Spain in mortgage brokerage. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. I set up on my own just over a year ago.
And how's the lockdown treating you, Alison?
Lockdown, as I said, a bit monotonous at home on a personal level. Trying to keep the family occupied and continue learning and doing all of that stuff. And then on a business level, to carry on as usual, as unusual. Mortgages are still being approved by the banks. The banks are still operating. They're still open for business. The branches have half the staff. They're being manned by half the staff. The other half are working from home. So if you want to contact anyone in the bank, you should do so.
Will, James, can I ask you to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. I'm Will Maxwell. I work for Currencies Direct. I myself am based at the NEATASHA office. I live in Chilches near Rincon de la Victoria. I mostly work with lawyers and estate agents, helping to make sure that their clients get a fantastic rate of exchange when they're moving money into or out of Spain, and also adding an extra level of security with things like fixing an exchange rate, especially if you're in the buying process. Markets at the moment, very unstable, have been for some time, especially with sterling, but also with things like krona. So it's important to bring in some extra security when you're trying to do a transaction, when you have a budget that's a different amount.
Okay, James.
Hi, James Barrett. I've been at Currencies Direct for 5 years now. More very much office based in compared to my colleague Will. So dealing with clients face to face, very much boots on the ground and helping get things done on this side. And of course, as Will mentioned, specialising in purely currency transfers, not just to the UK or from the UK, but worldwide, around Europe and everywhere really. So so far, lockdown's been difficult, but I'm very much in our Fuengirola office at the moment, and we're doing our best to be available for our partners such as MLS and various around Spain.
So no golfing, James?
No, unfortunately not. Although I've tried to go out by myself, but they won't let me out. No, even on my own, I said, I don't need people around me, but no, it's not allowed.
Excellent. There'll be plenty of days of golf left when we all come out of lockdown, I'll tell you.
I hope so.
Okay, so we've had a list of questions through from lots of clients and people who've been in touch with, who've contacted us via the Facebook page and sent us emails directly. So thank you very much for those. And we'll kick off with a question for Alison. Alison, are the banks working normally during the current state of alarm in Spain? And are they still dealing with mortgage applications?
Before I go into that question, just to give a bit of background as to who Mortgage Matters are, we are an independent mortgage brokerage, so we have agreements with all of the major banks in Spain because we give them good quality business and a good quantity of business. We're able to negotiate some special rates for clients. So we're basically, the job entails dealing on a daily basis with the banks. So the banks are very much still approving mortgage applications for both residents and for non-residents. I mean, obviously what they will do, given the current crisis and impending economic downturn, they will look at the client's personal economic circumstances much more closely, and their income sources as well, much more closely than they maybe have done up till now. For example, if you're a non-resident close rental income, if you have a UK rental portfolio, then obviously they will be very careful about how that income is going to be sustained in the next few months. And the same as if you own a chain of restaurants, for example, and that's your, they will look at that because obviously you're going to be majorly affected by the closure of bars and restaurants, etc. So they'll look more carefully at clients who will be directly affected by the economic difficulties and will probably look more positively on you if, for example, you're a civil servant or a teacher or a policeman, for example. Having said that, they will look carefully at the applications. They are still lending. Maximum lending is still 70% for non-residents. Some banks reduced to 60% for British after Brexit, but I still have 2 British clients who have a strong lending.
Okay, thanks for that, Alison. And do you think after when we come out of this crisis that there'll be a lot of bank repossessions because people default on their, sadly default on their mortgages because they lose their job or they're unable to pay their mortgages, and that the banks will become the greatest landlords again?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they are trying to avoid that happening with various options that the Spanish government have offered resident clients anyway. Let's see what happens. Fingers crossed it will be a short-term crisis that will be resolved quickly and things will get back to normal. That's looking at it from a positive point of view, because it's a totally different crisis to the economic crisis that we had in 2008. I mean, it's just fallen on us like a bombshell. So very difficult to predict what's going to happen in the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so one for the from Will or either James. After the lockdown, if I sell my Spanish property, how can I repatriate funds back to the UK?
In much the same way as you would be able to do in any other circumstance. Of course, if you can transfer it from your bank account to whatever account that you're wanting to move it to, or you could choose to use somebody like us to secure a better rate of exchange. The systems remain exactly the same, and after the lockdown, everything should go back to exactly as it was beforehand.
Yeah. Well, we had another question from someone who asked whether the banks are offering mortgage holidays for clients who already have a Spanish mortgage. Alison, could you please clarify this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a question that I'm being asked a lot, especially from my clients who are mainly non-resident clients. I mean, the first thing to clarify is what exactly a mortgage holiday is. It's not free money. It's not the government that's going to pay your mortgage for the next few months. It's basically a pause on your mortgage payments for a certain period. But the money is still going to be owed, and the outstanding capital is basically paused for a period of 3 months. So in other words, it still has to be paid back. What you have to remember is that in the UK, mortgage holidays are a fairly common possibility as a general rule.
Okay, I have a question for...
Basically, the
sorry.
criteria for a mortgage holiday. So yeah, so in the UK, you have to be up to date on your payments, and that's basically it. Spain's government passed a law in order to make sure that the banks offer the possibility of a 3-month mortgage holiday for those clients who are considered to be in a vulnerable situation. So you basically have to prove that you're in a vulnerable position in order to qualify for a mortgage holiday in Spain. And there are certain criteria that you have to meet. The first and most important point is that they will only allow a mortgage holiday on a property that is your main home. So this means that for those clients who are asking about mortgage holidays on their second home, or on their holiday home, they would not be eligible to apply for a mortgage holiday. So it needs to be your main residence, or it can be a commercial premises that you own in Spain, which has been directly affected by the crisis, or it can be a property which has been rented out long term and the tenant has stopped paying rent. Okay, so basically the answer to non-residents is that unless it's your main home, which obviously if you're a non-resident it's not going to be, you would not be eligible for a mortgage holiday. Having said that, some of the banks may offer a short-term loan to non-residents, or you may be able to negotiate. You have to show that you have a major drop in income. The documents that you require to apply for the mortgage holiday, if it is your main home, are fairly complex and extensive. So basically you would have to prove that you've lost your job, so show an employment certificate, prove that your company has had a major drop in income, at least 40%. You need to provide things like certificado de empadronamiento, which is basically proof that you reside at the address and have been for at least 6 months. You need to show nota simple, and you need a certificate showing the number of people. And then as far as income is concerned, the family living in the property must not be earning more than 3 times what's called the IPREM, which is basically the index in Spain, which is used to calculate whether you're eligible for benefits. And I think that the IPREM at the moment is around about 437 euros per month. So you can't be earning more than 3 times that. Plus your mortgage repayments must be equal to or above 35% of the family's net income. So basically the criteria are quite complicated. You have to meet all of those, and basically, as I said before, you have to prove that you are in a vulnerable situation. For the moment, mortgage holidays are available up until the 26th of May. And if the current state of alarm is government, it depends on how long we're going to be at home, basically. And if your mortgage holiday is granted, it needs to be inscribed in the land registry by your lawyer. So the contract stays the same, your repayments stay the same. What they will do is extend the term of the mortgage. And again, as you did at the beginning of the mortgage needs to be inscribed in the land registry, your lawyer will need to inscribe the holiday, the 3-month holiday, in the land registry as well. So yeah, it's not available for everybody, especially not available unless it's your main home. And the documentation that you need to provide to the bank is fairly complex and extensive. Yeah, so the main points were just that you have to prove that you're in a vulnerable situation to be eligible for the mortgage holiday. And if you're non-resident and it's not your main home, you would not be eligible, although some of the banks may have a solution if you can show that you're in a vulnerable situation at home. Okay, that's the main points.
I have a question because we're representing clients that are selling properties, are in the process of selling a property at the moment. So one of the clients asked, if I complete my Spanish property sale during the lockdown, can funds be repatriated? Maybe Currencies Direct could respond.
Yeah, sure. So we're doing our best for us to certainly keep business as normal in these unusual times. Certainly since we've come out of the high level of the escalation, the notaries seem to be more open. There's more things moving forward, which is good for clients who are selling. Very much the repatriation is certainly possible, of course, with the limited notary times and limited kind of face-to-face access people have. It can make things difficult. Certainly for ourselves, we're trying to be as available on the roads where needed. For example, having to look to actually help clients directly withdraw funds from these sales, and also in the offices where we, of course, we are trying to stay behind closed doors, but we are available for very limited contact to help our partners and affiliates with these proceeds. So, of course, a lot of veering towards wire transfers, which involve, of course, just a kind of simple wire, which doesn't involve too much face-to-face or a meeting of people for obvious reasons. but the process is still very much alive and going. And anyway, we can help clients with either wires, drafts. We're of course allowed to be out meeting clients where it's really required, and things do seem to be moving forward on that process. So every case is taken on its own basis, but we do very much look to advise what's best for all parties involved, make the process as easy as possible, be it, as I said, meeting straight after signings, or of course having very limited contact. But we are certainly still helping clients move funds back, which is still good news, because of course people are having to sell one home. They might have a chain that involves them buying their primary abode somewhere else. So these are quite vital processes. They aren't something of luxury, and we're glad that we can still, even in these difficult times, help clients to get the job done, and of course avoid any fees, charges here, and make it a simple process, as easy as possible. So it's good news that they are beginning to get more and more as we go forward.
And James, just to kind of step in there, I mean, what are the currencies doing at the moment? Because here on the Costa del Sol, we're acting for British clients, we're acting for Swedish clients, we're acting for Norwegians, Danish people, Americans, Australians. Generally, how is the virus, COVID-19 affecting currencies generally?
Yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago we had this kind of flash crash, which did happen. Certainly with sterling going down to 105 very, very briefly. It was more of just a 12-hour period. It had a massive tumble from its 2-year high of 119 down to this 105. The stock markets were, of course, shedding double-digit figures as well. It all knocked on from there. Very soon after, things did seem to kind of pick back up. The overreaction was kind of realised. Sterling has now picked back up, because of course the Eurozone has its own issues going forward as well, with various countries suffering, such as Spain, Italy and France now as well. Massive issues there. People have been flocking to the US dollar as a safe haven currency as well. So lots going on worldwide, going back to these safe haven days, which often happen in times of turmoil, like the 2008 recession as well. But certainly even this week's been a pretty steady week, in fact, as we seem to get to these peaks that a lot of countries seem to think that they are now on, be it the US, over here in Europe and so on. A bit more stability has come to many markets, even the stock market and so on. So this week's been a bit more of a steady week, but still a long way to go going forward before we're out of any woods. And to try and pick a clear winner would be very difficult. But the dollar's always a very keen one in these times when it comes to safe haven currencies.
I have a question for Alison de Cotta from Spanish Mortgage. So we would like to ask her about clients who are self-employed or they own small businesses. We would like to know if there is any kind of financial assistance available from banks.
Yes, self-employed clients and those who own small businesses can apply for a loan which is known as an ICO, which stands for Instituto de Crédito Oficial. Basically, this is public money or money that's that the government has made available from the public coffers and is placed at the disposal of small businesses who are going through difficulties because of the crisis that we're having at the moment. So basically it's help for them to pay invoices, pay salaries, pay taxes, pay their distributors, etc. And there are certain criteria which have to be met in order to be eligible for the ICO, which again are quite extensive. So you basically again have to prove that you've had a major downturn in your income. As a general rule, it's a loan that's available for 5 years, and interest rates range from between 3 and 5%, and the banks will usually allow you to pay interest only for the first 12 months. So yes, there is help which the government has made available for these types of businesses.
Thanks, Alison. So Will, we've got one for you. If I have a power of attorney for my client who is selling that doesn't include banking clauses, can Currencies Direct help with the repatriation of those funds, and what's involved?
Thanks, Alex. That's a good question. The short answer would be yes. However, it would depend on how things were structured. Where somebody's got a power of attorney where, for whatever reason, it doesn't include them to do banking, the funds need to get to us before we can send them to the UK. Now, in an ideal world, if the client was already registered with us and it was a wire transfer for the completion, then yeah, I mean, you can just get the wire transfer into Currencies Direct client account. That's going to be a very simple process. However, if it was kind of post-event, so the money is now sitting in the client's Spanish account from a wire transfer, it would depend on their access, because of course the power of attorney, they can't go in and access the bank because they don't have the access to it. So if they've set up the online banking already, then yeah, that's going to be something they will be able to do. There may be limits, it may take more time, but it can be done. If they have not got the internet banking and it was a wire transfer, it does create a problem that's not insurmountable, but becomes a lot more complicated. Some banks may accept authorizations through mail, as in snail mail, through the post, but that's going to be a long process. It's not going to be straightforward. Alternatively, if at the completion the payment was done by a banker's draft, then again, we're very well placed to help with that, because we can process bankers' drafts in our offices, and although the offices are closed to the public, we are still able to process those drafts. So yeah, basically, in an ideal world, a wire transfer to our client account, that makes it very straightforward. Second to that would be a banker's draft, which we can then process. Anything other than that, although it's going to be possible, it's going to be complicated and it's going to take time. But of course, if you've got it sitting in a Spanish account and you haven't got online access, it's always going to be complicated and going to take time because of the nature of the circumstance, basically.
Yeah, I mean, just so aware, whenever we prepare a power of attorney for a client, whether they're buying or selling a property, we always include a clause in there to kind of open, close, manage bank accounts, and that's something particularly when it comes to sales that we do. We'll sell the property, cancel the direct debits, and then close the bank account for the clients. Yeah.
Okay, I think the next question we have is possibly more related to Alison's scope of work, as it would be in relation to those clients, those who already have the mortgages approved on the property, whether they are still able to complete during the state of alarm in Spain. Is that possible? Is there, whatever the limitation, what is the criteria followed in practice?
Yeah, thanks, Isa. Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few clients who have found themselves in this position where they've got their mortgages approved, the valuation on the property has been done, and they're ready to complete. And now they're wondering whether the notaries are open and working as usual. I mean, for those clients who are ready to go to completion, the notaries are open and operative and are dealing with cases that are deemed urgent. Okay, so a completion with a mortgage is considered urgent by the notary's office. And so your lawyer or their lawyer should be able to request an appointment both to sign the acta, which is the pre-completion notary appointment, and also request an appointment to actually do the final completion on the property. So yes, it has to be done by appointment, but the notaries are giving out appointments to the lawyers in order to complete on behalf of their clients.
It's a great question, Isabel, because we managed to complete a sale for a property this week. That property was based in the Canary Islands, and the buyer's lawyer was, and myself, we had a great relationship, and they had a mortgage as well. We explained everything to the bank up front. The bank approved the process that we agreed. The deeds were signed in Gran Canaria, signed in Marbella, and then afterwards the funds were transferred to us, and then basically out to the client. And the buyers of that property used a mortgage. It does take time though. It's taking a lot of time to get these through.
Yeah, but I think they're treating completions with mortgages as urgent because obviously a mortgage has an expiry date on it. So if you don't get the completion through, you could find yourself with the mortgage having expired and having to go through the whole application process all over again.
I have another question for Currencies Direct. And the question is, how can I organize living funds to be sent to me in Spain from a third party outside Spain?
Okay, yeah, something that actually has come up more recently with everything happening on this side in Spain, and of course even the UK now with the lockdown. We've had some clients who, of course, are in extreme circumstances, are not able to even, of course, fly back to the UK, and this kind of option has popped up for, of course, when people need funds, they have to look at all various sources that they can get, family members, so on. Certainly for kind of regular clients or established clients, it's not really any problem. As we have a kind of history with them, third-party funds are more than normally okay. Maybe some required documents to show the relationship. Normally it would be a family member, this kind of thing. So that would be absolutely fine to get things done for them. It is more taxing with a new client just due to the new relationship. We do normally have a policy of looking to get funds from our clients, the first trade, just for everyone's safety to start that relationship off on the right foot. But certainly in this extreme kind of circumstances, all these are taken into account, and I wouldn't say anything's possible, but we're definitely trying to be as flexible as we can. So if clients are in need, if they have a real need for these funds and it's of a kind of needed basis, then we will look at all options, and certainly anything within reason from family members to ensure that loved ones are actually being looked after or have their proceeds to kind of get by. We'll definitely look to help wherever we can, various ways to receive and collect payments. And anyone who gets in contact will advise the easiest and the most logical way forward for that. So it's definitely something we can do. And we are currently helping a lot more clients on that basis to ensure that they have the living funds needed in these difficult times.
Excellent. Thanks for that, James. Alison, another kind of question for you. One of the things, we've got quite a few estate agents on the call today, and we're all hoping that property prices won't be too badly affected by the crisis, and that as soon as flights resume between European countries and further afield, that lots of buyers will come back on the market. And no doubt we'll see some investors coming back on the market as well, smelling some bargains that undoubtedly may be around. When we speak to potential buyers, we always advise them it's good if they're going to borrow some money to talk to the banks and to independent mortgage brokers before they even come to Spain. Are you getting people doing that? Are the banks accepting documents now about people's financial information with a view to them applying for a mortgage further down the line?
Yes, I mean, yes, and I would certainly recommend, as you say, to clients who are looking to come out possibly towards the end of the year or when travel resumes back in September, October time, to definitely start the mortgage approval process now, because the banks are fully operative and are keen to approve mortgage applications at this stage. So we can do a full study for a mortgage now and provide them with an agreement in principle, pending them finding a property when they visit Spain when things actually calm down. So if they do that, basically we'll put them in a much stronger position when they do come out to Spain, if they've got the approval in their pocket ready and waiting before putting in an offer on a property when it comes out. So it'll make the process much quicker. So definitely recommend to the estate agents, if they do have clients who are looking to come out towards the end of the year, to start moving the paperwork now on the mortgage.
Okay, and presumably on your website, do you have a list of the documents that they may need to kind of send over to you to start that process?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Good.
Yes, there's a list on the website, or they can get directly in contact with me as well. Okay. And I can email them through a list. No, I was going to say, on a positive note, I think that with the lockdown, with people working remotely, getting used to working away from the office, not going in on a daily basis, that perhaps there may be more people actually now thinking that they're going to bite the bullet and start working remotely in Spain with the nice weather and the pool outside, rather than continuing to work from home in the UK. So I think it may put an idea into people's heads that maybe now is the time to look at relocating, because I can actually work from home. So
yeah, no, it's a good point. I don't think when we return to normality. There will, you know, it won't be normality as we knew it before. There'll be gradual restrictions in place. And I agree with you. I think a lot of people have got used to working from home. I've certainly kind of enjoyed it. But yeah, we've missed socializing with people in the office and seeing clients. And it's going to be, I'm certain that there'll be a fair few parties when we come out of lockdown.
I think so.
So here's another one for either Will or James. We had a question through. How can I organise payments from Spain to third parties, such as investment providers, pension companies? How can I provide those kind of payments outside of Spain during the lockdown?
Yeah, so really, again, hopefully being business as normal with everything, with regular clients, it's an easy process. I mean, it's, in this sort of time and period, online banking for someone to have that is a very important, hopefully this will kind of show that to people. It's a very important tool to have. It means you can get a lot done from the safety of your own home, not having to necessarily go down to the branches, which are all very, they would much prefer clients to be using their online banking for obvious reasons. And everyone knows about bank queues and no one likes to spend half an hour, 45 minutes. So it shows the importance of that. But certainly for any payment kind of worldwide out of Spain, we've got the accounts and the process to still receive funds domestically here. That makes it a very simple transfer across to us by collecting these destination details. Again, third parties are no problem for us to release funds to. It's all about just having that reason for the transfer, perhaps some documentation to back things up if that's required. It always helps just to appease the compliance issues. But yes, certainly we can receive funds. Really, this is as normal, but of course we try and encourage clients to not go down to their bank. Online banking is the way. We can receive the funds just via a very simple transfer, even if it's in smaller installments to get the job done. So yeah, hopefully this is as normal, and we're willing to get funds to many destinations as long as the client has a valid and kind of authorised reason. We'll gladly help transfer funds out of Spain worldwide.
I have a question for Alison. It's from a client who are selling a property and he needs to sell the property urgently. I'd like to ask you, Alison, is there any kind of finance assistance from the banks?
Okay, so the real estate agents will know more about this than I do as far as selling is concerned. There'll be a lot of clients who are selling properties at the moment, and they're probably just going to wait out the current lockdown with the hope that things will go back to normal, perhaps after the summer, towards the end of the year, when the travel is back to normal and buyers can come out to view their properties. But there will be some clients who may need to sell urgently because maybe they're buying another property or they need liquidity, or for whatever reason. The high street banks in Spain will not be able to help you with this kind of short-term lending to non-residents. However, we can look at bespoke bridging loans from private capital lenders. So there are private capital lenders out there who will do short-term lending using the property as security to help out people who are struggling with liquidity, for example. It's much more expensive than a high street bank and mortgage lending, but it is an answer for some people who are having difficulties with their liquidity. Important to note, though, that if you are going to work with a private capital lender, they need to be properly registered and fully regulated by the Bank of Spain.
We were listening to James and Will, and they obviously were saying that for the international transfers, the ideal is to instruct an online transfer, so to avoid visiting the banks. But what about those customers who may not have access to internet? I mean, nowadays it's normal to have, but it's still for some people who do not work, perhaps elderly people. So how could they organize international transfers without the internet access during this lockdown period?
It's going to be challenging. It would depend on the circumstances. If, for example, we have a client who already is registered with us and has used us in the past, they would be able to organise, in most cases, a transfer over the telephone using something like a card. But if they are not a registered client with us, it's going to be very challenging, because we would need things like proof of address, proof of identification, an acceptance of terms. This is nearly always done through the internet. So yeah, it would be very challenging. Similarly, they're going to struggle dealing with their banks as well if they've not got access to the internet, because they can't go in there. So yeah, if you've got no internet access and you haven't already set something up, it's going to be very challenging indeed.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, you can hear me, yeah?
We can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I had a question. It was a bit more general, not completely COVID related, but it's for Alison. We have met Alison, I think, if you remember, but can't see the name. Yeah, hi. As a financial advisor, I come across people who ask me about all sorts of things, and I don't do mortgages. Alison does, so you know, I would refer them to her. And the first part of the question is about people who don't have a job or are in a non-standard situation. What sort of things would they need to do to be able to get a mortgage if they've got you know, perhaps rental properties abroad, they've got investments, pensions or whatever, and they don't want to sink all their money into property? And the second part of it was, if it is COVID related, which is just whether the lenders are being you know, are helping people online, and whether things have improved a little bit along those lines.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Do you have a specific client in mind, or is it just a general question?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah. Yeah, so we can talk about it separately, of course.
Okay, all right. I mean, yeah, I mean, as a general rule, clients who are not working and who don't have a regular income from a profession as such, it's not their favorite kind of client, let's say, but they will consider doing a mortgage for them. Obviously, it depends on the portfolio of investments that they have. And they would consider them to be more of a higher risk client, let's say, which you can understand with the downturn recently in the markets. Obviously, a lot of investors will have lost a great deal of value on their portfolio. But so they would need to look at the portfolio, see what it's made up and what sort of risk profile it's got. If we can prove to them that the clients had a regular income from the investments, that it's been going on for long term, that it's a steady income, that it's declared on their tax returns, then yes, it's something that we can apply for. Basically, they may offer a reduced LTV. They may also even try and get the client to place some funds on deposit with them, or buy some of their own funds, and they like that. They like doing that. But yes, it's a possibility, but we need to look at it on a case-by-case basis, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second part of the question was about tax residence.
Well, yeah, there's that. Yeah, whether tax residence makes a difference, and also if the banks are using technology more during the lockdown in order to sort of get the process going.
Yeah, I mean, as far as tax residence is concerned, obviously, if you're a Spanish resident, then you will have the option to obtain a higher LTV. So they'll go up to 80%, possibly even 90% in some cases. If you're non-Spanish resident, the max would be 70%. But then it depends on where they're tax resident, and also the currency of their earnings as well. They don't particularly like clients who are residents of offshore jurisdictions, for example. That makes them a little bit nervous. Yeah, so it would affect. If you're a non-EU resident, for example, they will reduce the LTV to 60% as well. Okay, right. So yes, the LTV and the criteria are certainly affected by where the client is resident.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
And Phil, I know you kind of participated in enough seminars to know that the calendar year in Spain for the tax residency runs from January to December. And if you're in Spain for more than 183 days, then you have to become a Spanish tax resident. And at the moment, obviously, the police stations are closed, so that residency process is on hold. But as soon as the police stations open, we'll let everyone know.
Yeah, hi Alison. Enhorabuena, and very good comments that you've been making. Really interesting. I just wanted to go back to the registration that you were saying. When you were you referring to the moratoria of the mortgage?
Yeah, exactly. I
Right,
was talking
okay.
about the mortgage holiday.
Yeah, okay, so that's the same, the mortgage holiday.
Yeah.
Now, with regards to the mortgage holiday, then, are we saying that they have an obligation to register that? So it will be a modification of their mortgage deed?
Yeah, exactly. That change in the contract must
Because it
be
extends the
inscribed in
duration. Because it extends the duration of the mortgage, doesn't it?
It extends the duration of the mortgage. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
will the bank? I didn't realise that. Will the bank be? I mean, this isn't something we directly get involved in, but my question is: will the bank be doing that, or should we be advising our clients to contact their lawyer to make sure that it's done, or do they speak to the bank to make sure it's done? How's that going to happen? Or is it too soon to know?
The bank will insist that it's done, and the client needs to do it via their lawyer.
Right. Okay. So the bank will be telling them this, and then our advice to them will be make sure that you pass this through your lawyer.
Yeah, and the lawyer can do it on the client's behalf.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay.
Take care.
Hi, I was just curious if the meeting today was mainly about mortgages and real estate. I have a visa-related question.
Yeah, let's feel free to fire that on, and we'll see if we can answer that.
Okay, thanks. I've been doing a lot of research. I'm here on a non-lucrative visa. I'm non-EU, and I need to renew this year. I've been doing a lot of research, and one thing I have not been able to find an answer to is on the financial side, when you need to prove financial independence, does the money need to be in a Spanish bank account?
Yes, generally the money does have to be in a Spanish bank account, because as part of the visa application process, you have to present bank statements confirming that the money is there. So the Spanish banks usually want to see money coming into a Spanish bank account, and they want to see a balance there. And depending on the region you're applying for, the amounts vary. So I think, again, maybe if you send us an email through, we can discuss your kind of individual residency requirements with you.
Originally, when we applied, we had, of course, our portfolio is in another bank account, not here. So we had to provide proof of income and proof of assets there. We don't have a regular income. We have investments. We have a portfolio, so we live off of that. And it's really difficult to, relocate all of those funds into a Spanish bank account. There's a specific amount that the renewal visa requests that you show. I'm just curious if they want that minimum amount in a Spanish bank account, or I don't want to move all my funds into a Spanish bank account. Is that something can you comment on now, or should I discuss this with you or by email later?
I think, where are you applying for?
In Malaga, in Andalusia.
Okay, so basically, generally, I think, and do you have dependents as well?
Yes.
Okay.
2 dependents. It's a family of 4.
Okay, so I think let's contact you after this call, and we can discuss the individual residency requirements for you, and we can double check the amounts that are required. Okay.
Thanks so much. Great. Thank you.
If can my client cash in an euro banker's draft from a Spanish property sale in a UK bank? So what's involved in that process, and how long it will take?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Roger. That's again something actually which we've been happening the whole time, but something that's come to light as well in these difficult times. It's actually a very difficult process. It becomes extremely time delayed. It's certainly, and even now, because of the whole Brexit happening, a lot of UK banks are actually refusing to even accept these Euros bankers drafts. Now, that might be due to, again, the Brexit relationships. I'm not sure what it will be like post-Brexit. It does depend bank to bank. But in general, we are seeing they are more adverse to not accepting these drafts, which fundamentally are made in Spain, and they should really be processed in Spain, because in general, the time frame So for any bank outside of Spain to process a Spanish banker's draft would be upwards of 6 to 8 weeks for that to be processed. So for the two banks to communicate and to finally free up those funds. And that very much leaves any client, the point of exchange would not be done as well until that 6 to 8 week period. So you're at the risk of exchange rate movements in that period. That, of course, in this climate can be a very dangerous process. It can mean that you get a much lesser value if the rate has moved very firmly against you. And it just makes it a very laborious task. And there might be some fees and charges applied by that home processing country as well. With ourselves, the reason we have boots on the ground here is to help clients with these drafts here in Spain. What that means fundamentally is within 3 working days, you can have everything exchanged and back with that client on the UK side. If that draft is handled here in Spain, it makes it a much, much faster clearing process. Anywhere outside of Spain, you are looking at that 6 to 8 week period. You're at the mercy of the rate on that future date. And of course, you will likely receive a very poor rate of exchange from whichever high street bank has that process. So it's something which every client should look to avoid at all costs. It can never end in anything except tears, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Okay, Ali, I think we've just got time for one last question. Let's get that one to Will. Will, question is, can I still buy a home in Spain during the lockdown if my budget is not based in euros?
Absolutely. And there are I even have some affiliates who have got people going into the buying process at the moment. Of course, you're not going to be able to physically come here. So you will need to speak with your lawyer about some of the legal elements of it. But in terms of moving money over here to secure a deposit, or fixing an exchange rate, I suppose, so that you can, if you're putting down a deposit at the moment and then you're looking to complete, hopefully in 2 months' time, you're at the mercy of some very unstable markets. So yeah, it'd be very wise to speak to a currency broker and lock something in. But yeah, there are, believe it or not, as strange as it may sound, there are people actually doing this right now. So yes, fundamentally, you can buy here in Spain, even if you have a budget that's not in the local currency.
Yeah, and we have seen in the last few weeks where clients, we're active with lots of clients who are still buying the properties. Sadly, some have pulled out, but the majority of those are still proceeding with their purchases. And we've been instructed on new purchases as well. People who know the area have had great videos through from agents, and they've still decided to buy in the current times. And they're agreeing those purchases in euros and using currency companies to transfer the monies over. Okay, so we've come to the end of the seminar for this afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone indeed for attending. In the chat, we've answered some of the questions, provided email addresses. So those of you who ask questions and need some additional information, please have a look at those email addresses or go onto our website, mylawInspain.com, and contact us on the inquiries page. Happy to pick up the phone as well and talk to you about these issues. We've got our next seminar coming up next week on the 24th of April at 3 p.m. On that seminar, we'll be having we're having agents from across the country talking to us about the current market, how they're finding the market, and how they're helping buyers buy property and choose a property at the moment. So that'll be quite an interesting seminar. From us, from the Milo in Spain team, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you soon in our offices.